Hi, this is Courtney Young with Module 11, Case Study Every Day Counts. So, just to briefly summarize here, we are at Golden Oaks High School, who's seen a recent increase in student truancy to where 85% of students now have 10 or more days absent from school. Dr. Newman is a school superintendent. He's recently hired a new principal, Mr. Rhodes, and he has charged Mr. Rhodes with the task of developing a plan to remedy this truancy issue. We've also noticed in correlation with the truancy issue that in recent years the community has had a cultural shift and has increased in its diversity. Um, there's also no consistency in how absences are excused, when they're excused, who they're excused for, which teachers are excusing them. We have mixed feelings between parents and their belief system on how important school is. Also, teachers' belief in what students should be excused, whether they should document absences. So we're lacking some significant inconsistencies here, or we have some significant inconsistencies here. Um, Mr. Rhodes has stated that his goal is to develop a school culture where attendance is valued and where there's an understood relationship between high academics and students actually being in school. And the goal is to have that be a collaborative belief between students, parents, and teachers. So the legal and ethical concerns that I noted was that all students are in violation of this state truancy law that the school has adopted. We also have the athletic director who is favoring athletes, allowing them to not be documented as absent or to be excused to rest before games so that they can perform better at their athletic events. We have what I seem to notice was honor students were being excused more readily than non-honor students were. It was also a concern for me that the parents contacted the school and that contact was not followed up or those calls returned by teachers or the school counselor. Then we have Christina, who's being excused by her minister. And I feel like ethically, we need to be contacting her parents to find out what's going on, if they even know that she is being excused from school, or if this minister is even her legal guardian. That's a possibility, but right now I don't know that. I feel like the inconsistencies in itself is unethical as well. To synthesize what's happening, the staff at Golden Oaks High School has failed to provide an environment where all students can thrive due to the inconsistent and biased implementation of the attendance policy. So some facts here. We have Mr. Rhodes, who is the school principal, and Dr. Newman, who's the superintendent. High stakes situation for both of them because they are the face of the school and it is looking pretty poor, I would say, from the rest of the community's perspective, that the school is having such a horrible attendance situation going on. We have Karen, who was recently married. She was a good student during her freshman and sophomore year, but her grades have declined after getting married. And she's also the one who parents called the school and their calls were not returned. We have Tyrone, who's a sophomore. He's an honor student and has been excused repeatedly, even though he has chronic absences for educational trips that he's taking with his parents. And it does seem like he has a strong support system at home and parents who do want to support him. We have Christina, who is being excused from notes provided by her minister. I don't know if her parents are involved or aware of this situation. And her grades are also declining. She's missing high stakes tests that she needs to be present for. Then we have Carl and his parents. Carl's parents do not place high status on education. They did not graduate from high school and believe that he could go right out into the work field as well. Carl attends part of the day at the vocational school, and he also has siblings in the district. So that's something that we also need to be aware of and watching for. The school truancy officer is also involved in that case. We have John, who is the school quarterback, and he is being excused through the athletic director and teachers, not even documenting that he's not in class. So definitely one of the big inconsistencies there. We also have the athletic director as playing an administrative role. We've got teachers. We have the school counselor who is involved in the student and families' lives. We have the truancy officer who's been called in. We also, if we have the truancy officer involved, we know we have the legal system also involved. And then we have the community as a whole to think about. So this is primarily taking place at Golden Oaks High School that has a low teacher turnover rate, which is an awesome quality of this school district. Nearly 1,000 students with lots of extracurricular activities. Like I've stated, there's been a shift culturally in the community lately, and so we also need to make sure that we're meeting these diverse needs of our the change in the community. Then we have the vocational school that partners with the high school that transports the students to attend programs at their school. Golden Oaks is 9th through 12th grade. It is a public school that, like I said, partners with the vocational school and offers a variety of sports teams and clubs and organizations. So, some implications for the stakeholders. First, who are our stakeholders? Well, we've got the school personnel, teachers, janitors, cooks, secretaries. We have the school district personnel with superintendents, their secretaries, the school board. Then we have students and their families who are very high stakes in this situation. They kind of hold all the cards, and they're the ones who are going to reap the most benefits from their own education and their students' educations. We have the community, we have social services, and the judicial system involved here. So some implications for these stakeholders: it could result in students being removed from their homes if they are brought to the attention of the judicial system for their truancy, and we definitely want to avoid that. It could cause more work for social services in the judicial system over time. Depending on how we handle this situation, it can initially cause conflict between the school and students and their family. It could negatively impact athletic teams if students are not eligible to play because of their attendance. It could positively affect student academics. If we can get kids into the classroom, then it would definitely have a positive effect on them. It could improve or deteriorate the community depending on how the situation is handled and addressed and the relationships that we're able to build. Ultimately, it could result in more positive school environment for everyone, or it could cause a decline in the relationships between the school and students and their families. So definitely things we need to consider in handling the situation. So what are some things that I would like to still know, need to consider and evaluate? So what methods have been used in the past, and what were the results of those methods? What data do we have to support that those methods didn't work, or maybe that we were starting to see some improvement and maybe we need to go back to those? What data has already been collected that can give us more insight into what's causing these attendance issues? Have we taken any recent perception data? And what data do we have on attendance and achievement scores already that we can use? What future data do we need to be collecting to answer some of these questions? Who's responsible? I felt like we needed to answer some very specific questions. Who's responsible for checking if students are in class? If we know we have teachers who are not being completely honest, who is responsible for checking on this? Who's able to legally excuse a student from school? Is it the minister? What information do we have that this minister is a guardian? And if not, who do we need to be contacting to get this situation fixed? And can students be excused through notes or phone calls or some other method? Will an email work? Should there be exceptions to what is considered excusable absence? And if so, where do we draw the line on that? What are the current biases that staff hold that are affecting the inconsistent implementation of school policy and state law? Do we favor athletes, and do we hold our performance on Friday nights at the game to a higher standard than our academic achievements? And then what is the best way to advocate for students whose families don't prioritize education? Maybe working more closely with that vocational school would be a benefit to more students if we can get some of those hands-on skills built up for our students. So some things I considered to do in this situation was everything from taking no action at all, taking some severe action, and then implementing things like a school resource officer, making sure that we're setting clear expectations with our teachers, coming up with a plan to reinforce and consistently follow those the truancy standards that we've set in place. So a whole variety of different things that we could, a mentorship program. Maybe even not requiring students to take finals if they do meet the attendance policy. So some pros and cons. If we don't take any action, we're not going to see any results. Students might not find it beneficial to not take the finals. Maybe they're not going to show up anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Severe action is going to cause some disconnect between everyone. So I don't think that that's going to be a good option. No matter what we do, there's always going to be some resistance to change. And so we're going to have to weather that and work through that as well. And then we may not see results immediately. However, some pros. A school resource officer could be a huge bridge connection between community, school, students, parents, and building those relationships, and especially if we approach that the right way. Setting clear expectations. That way there's no questions. Nobody's wondering what the rules are, and it can only be considered fair. We wouldn't be facing those discrimination types of issues. Finals might be an encouragement to some. Mentorship could build the morale at the school and create stronger relationships. Having relationships within the community is always beneficial to the school and everyone involved. And then if we have any improvement in school attendance, that's ultimately going to be good. So I chose my best option as bringing in a school resource officer who's responsible for creating unity between the school, students, families, and the community. So this would have to be somebody who is able to meet the diverse needs of the community members. So we would need to take that into consideration. Care would also need to be given to bringing this person into the new position, and how we handle that between the staff and introducing that to the staff and to the parents and to the students, and making sure that we were focused on building strong relationships and really focused on meeting the needs of all the stakeholders involved with this person. So it would be a really big job. This option would also require a consistent commitment of school leaders and staff to work together, and where everyone is held accountable for their part in the school improvement. So that's where sharing that data would really come in handy, and we would definitely need to do that. So implementing this plan, I would first like to review and amend the current attendance policy to cover any gray areas. Then reviewing the data that we've collected over the last 10 years or so, documenting attendance and a correlation between achievement scores there, and putting that in an easy to read document that I can share with staff so that they can see that this is valuable information and really does have an impact. Collecting more perception data from current students, their families, and from staff, so that we can better meet the needs of everybody involved. Then we'd have to find a qualified resource officer, reviewing the attendance policy with staff and making sure that they know that there's not going to be exceptions and we're all going to be expected to uphold that policy. Addressing concerns with any of the staff that is not currently being consistent in their attendance and not reporting students who are actually gone. Provide written copies to the family so they know exactly what the expectations are, and also posting that on our social media accounts so that everyone has a chance to read those. I think the school resource officer would need to meet face-to-face with the families and students of chronic absentees so that we can get some face-to-face contact, collect some information, and talk to them to really have that information of what's going on and what their belief systems are, so we can, like I said, better address those needs. This resource officer would need to meet with the principal on a regular basis to stay in contact with what's going on, where attendance is this week, are we improving, are we making strides, what information is being shared, and monitoring that attendance, collecting that data consistently so that we can compare it to our academic achievements and see if we're really making some gains. And this plan would have to be reviewed annually to be adjusted and make changes where needed, and to document whether or not it is actually working. So my correlation to the standard, this assignment fell right into place with this standard. It gave me the opportunity to put myself in the role of a school administrator. Faced with the task of improving this attendance, I had to walk through all the steps of evaluating the current situation, developing a plan, and thinking of how I'm going to best advocate for my students, my staff, how everyone would benefit from this. And I think by having that school resource officer, no one's asked to do extra work, and we're really focused on building the relationships and having a person who's able to collect the data and use the data, analyze the data, and then report back with our results. So thank you for allowing me to share.